I grabbed everything that was in there.
Mayor Ikorst,
Here.
Councilor Bergner,
Here.
Councilor Phillips,
Here.
Councilor Richards,
Here.
Councilor Gross.
Here.
Thank you.
So we have an agenda and there were 3 items on it. Any other thing to add to it or are we good to go?
No, I think we're good to go. We can get into the numbers and blanks showing up, but we go.
We'll make a motion to approve the agenda. Second. Comments? And all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, approved. Where do we go?
And away we go. Okay, so you have before you updated, somewhat updated, worksheets that, we'll be filling in as Kane and I have been having discussions and, various, committees as well. So just quickly, that first section, Department of 5 zeros, is just a 10% increase over, and it looks like that's just bank fees.
Well, before you go, what are the headings for the columns? They cut off or?
Oh. Okay, so the ones to the left of the first black line are the proposed 2024 budget. We'll fill in those numbers, some are filled in. And then moving to the right, you have 2023 budget, then actuals through July, 2022 budget, actuals,
Same thing, okay.
yeah, for the last 5 years. So those kind of coincide with what you saw last time. And even in the last workshop.
So it's 7/12 budget.
Correct.
%58% or the 2022 budget is in the second column of each year, the right column.
Say that again. So this,
The one on the left is,
that's 2023 budget.
We're through that much. How much of it are we through?
58%.
58%,
Of the actual.
right? But the budget column will reflect the entire year.
So we, just so I'm clear, we have the first 2 columns. First one is 2023 budget actual, so we're partway through. And I had, the second one is 2023 actual through July.
Yes.
Okay.
That's 58%.
Okay, that's 50.
Yeah, that's,
Okay. Good.
no,
this is the
58.
column that's 58%.
Oh,
So it's budget column, then actuals,
okay,
budget actuals, budget
okay,
actuals.
so these are the years.
Yeah,
All right.
So
This is 20, the first one.
22.
Yeah,
2023 is the first
Yeah.
one.
okay. I get it.
So you have information going back to 2019. Good thing you brought a pencil, huh?
Mhm.
I need some white out.
I promised to fix that for you. So.
So we're gonna fill in each blank.
Well, we'll talk about them kind of, as we go along.
Okay.
Big picture, I looked at the categories kind of as the groupings. If there's anything that jumps out, but I think, 132 is certainly sufficient for bank fees, I think. And that would be inclusive of somebody bounces a check on us or that sort of thing. And I wanna move with council's consent, I wanna move through rather quickly. So that we can make sure Kane has the time he needs to review. So largely on the first page, you'll just see the groupings have been summarized by a subtotal that's from the 2023 budget plus 10%. And again, we are working on a preliminary budget. And certainly once all the data is filled in and the picture becomes more clear, then we can establish the preliminary levy and budget, and then make adjustments from there. Questions so far?
Do you think that 10% is enough for the city clerk treasurer because we over budget every year?
I think that's largely due to the fact that, remember early on, all of my stuff got dumped into that particular category
Okay.
as opposed to, you'll see in other areas where I have wages that are applicable, those will be coming under, so.
But even this year, we're above.
So in this first grouping, from the first page, would you have the total? Like in the case of the mayor and council. You're proposing 28,000, which is 10% more than 2023, I take it.
Correct.
So then you will go back and fill those blanks to equal
Yes.
28,000. Is that your thoughts? Okay.
Yeah, unless you have specific things that kind of jump out at you that you think we need to like beef up within the category. And just a note, a reminder that from 2022 actual was on yours were significantly less because it got paid in January of 2023, so we'll be over for that,
Oh, yeah.
double that.
The other thing that there is on the conference fees. Next year, the LMC is gonna be here in Rochester. Okay, which would be good, is the more that could go to that, I think is really beneficial. To do that, but there's no lodging or anything else that would be associated with that,
Right.
so. Cause I highly recommend that, I thought that's very good, and especially it's here in town. Be easy to do that.
Yeah, we did that probably 6-7 years ago, something like that, when I was in Rochester. I don't think many of the council members did go, or if they did, yeah. Yeah, if a person is available, it is a good time to go, that's for sure.
That's, I just wanted to kind of mention that, so, but there wouldn't be, the conference mileage or, meals, whatever, which would balance out whatever to go through that category, so. I just wanted to mention that,
Yeah.
so.
I'll look back and see what the actual. Because the 524, was that all your one conference?
Yeah, it was just the one that I had, and the other one that I went up to was a 1 day at the Capitol.
Oh,
Whatever they call that, a Capitol Day, I can't remember what it was, but that wasn't staying over or anything else that way, that was just. An up and back, so it was just mileage and whatever they charge for that.
but there was still a conference fee
Yeah.
associated with that. I was just thinking 524 was an odd amount.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm thinking, because I don't think anybody else has done anything, so.
No, good, thank you.
All right, go ahead.
And like I did last year, you'll see a specific breakdown on salaries and allocations as a separate page and I'll get. Don't read with this. One thing I'm sorry.
I'll go to page 2 or anything else.
One thing I just wanted to mention down at elections, remember, in 2023, we didn't budget anything, but we do have that, school election that's going on. So we will have some expense in 2023 that was unbudgeted. So that, for that one, that's not a typo on my part. I actually did go back to the 2022 budget and bumped that by 15% given, again, I believe that the election workers will run into that same kind of, well, no, unless they work 80 hours. But next year they possibly could if they're doing, remember the
You're gonna have a
Sick and
primary
safe
next year plus,
Township.
so there's
Right.
gonna be 2 of them next year.
right, and they're, I'm not sure,
You're talking about the part-time employee.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah,
thank you.
you're welcome. I knew what you were trying to say. But that's not
Cascade.
2025,
No, January 2024,
24. What's
which
the-
is this budget that we're working on.
Just look on this.
Page 2.
Okay. And again, there with. Same thing, in terms of. Let's see, I noticed there's a bank fees down here too, so there's another duplicative.
We have a breakdown of what, with our memberships.
What's that up?
In terms of memberships, we have like a breakdown of what they are. Are you anticipating? Are there specific ones that you're anticipating would maybe go up a little?
You're on the second page.
Yeah, I guess it starts on the first, the financial administrator.
Yeah, and that's gonna be inclusive of, like, that line shows up in the mayor and council department, but then it's not included in like my position or Renee's position, it's all part of that one financial department 415
So just kind of answer Jim's question. So our the memberships are the dues. We have LMC. We have Minnesota Association, Small Cities. There's clerks organization too.
Renee and I both belong to that.
Are those the three or are there others? That's only. Do you have any fees, memberships?
They'd be covered within like water and
Yes.
water department.
So we wouldn't have to worry about new staff. Memberships,
Covered with our water utility expenditures.
so all of that,
It'd be training more than anything.
okay.
There's the Southeast Minnesota League of Municipalities, I think that's. Maybe 250 at the most, might be
Yeah,
more like 65. Ridiculous low.
Can you guys help me understand contract labor?
Which line?
It would be the
Nine.
42297.
that's going to be if we had to bring in supporting independent contractors.
So is that like? The reason we used to spend more, or that we did that one year is because we had. To have so much help with accounting and bookkeeping and all that.
Well, that's actually down under legal services.
So then what would this contract labor be? Why did we budget $20,000?
Oh, that I will keep that up there. That should be actually your accounting piece and your audit. This other one should be separated out from your audit.
So that is,
Remember, next year, your audit is going to be higher because we have the additional loans. Remember Andrew mentioned that as part of it. Right, so I would include that again this year up in contract labor. And then also the auditing and accounting, I would split. I'd leave audit under legal services, but
this is
move
accounting.
the accounting piece up.
No, the computer and internet. We budgeted 0. Obviously, we're at 4,000 and some change. But what is that? New systems, is it?
That is new hardware, we will be moving to, we just started spending money in that category. In
Is that a new
2022.
So when you say we just started spending money in that category, does that mean was a new category? Okay.
Yeah, I did set that one up.
And so that would be computer hardware, a printer with printers.
That's where your printer.
Okay. Okay.
So the contract labor. For this year, I know it's changing next year because it's really, the seat is gonna be more of, I think the contract was originally for the. At the seat of contract,
Oh, you're right.
and now we're
That
moving it to the very
17,000,
end to be
yeah.
part of the economic development.
Yeah.
So that,
I think
I'm
that,
guessing that 20,000 would go down or
and that's where,
or 60. My lines,
Yeah, we had 12,000 the year before and 12,000 the year before that. Actually, 12,000 all the way across on the contract labor.
17,000, that was for the seat.
And we must have bumped it because we spent more.
well, and that was, remember my special projects assistant,
Yeah, so
that's still coming out.
is that under that one? That's contract.
Yeah, cause I wasn't sure what we were gonna, how we were gonna handle that in terms of
Okay.
as a project based or.
If we go back, just to kind of give you a reference, in 2021. There were a lot of items put into that contract labor that should have been in other places, but it amounted to 16,000. So that's really a misnomer and a lack of proper locating for those. That ended up being a lump sum for a lot of different things that should have been put in there with other categories like Schaefer for accounting and I think there was something from Osman or Ottman in that contract labor too. So it was kind of a hodgepodge of contracts which shouldn't have been.
Looks like Jenny's got a question there on your comment.
No, I'm just like, oh my goodness, it's better and better. No, it's not a question. It is.
The mess. Subcontracted, can you delineate those for me?
We did have this conversation, didn't
We started it,
Yeah.
and then did we decide to stop saying subcontracted, because what's the point?
I don't know.
In 21, that was 12,000. 161 subcontracting.
So takeaways I already have from this meeting on page 2 are headers on every page. And do you want lines going all the way across?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Much easier to read.
And also numbering the lines, so
Yeah.
They're
numbering
all
would be
numbered.
good. You could even alternate a shade if you wanted. Draw your.
I mean, the numbers would be great that we could run to right away there. I said having the numbers would be easier for us to be able to go to right away to follow.
Yeah,
And especially to go back again if we want to.
yes.
So I wrote a note that contract labor, about 13,000 of that was EDA.
yeah,
And that you were gonna get an idea of what the subcontracted services were for this meeting.
So in 2021, subcontracted services were virtually unique. Jobs, there's been jobs postings, Jobs HQ, Smith Schaefer Associates, Smith Schaefer subcontracted. It was a hodgepodge. And
That's a website coordinator.
What's that?
I think Virtually Unique is a website. Isn't that Debbie Cassidy?
Is it
oh.
What did we use her for?
Because for a while there, wasn't she doing some work on our website
Not sure.
or
I
not,
think there was
not
some,
the.
website work done.
So it's, and if the contract labor back in 2021 amounted to Smith Schaefer, David Drown Associates, the Mike Bavani, Tri-State Business Managed Machines, which should have been office equipment. Virtually Unique. So it's just bad.
I guess
Someplace
what I,
to throw something into
Right.
it.
It was a dumping pot for all
so
contracts.
do you need it? Do you need subcontract and do you need contract labor? Is it really just the same thing?
Like, I think, and Kane and I had this conversation today, that one. Some of the accounts, and I know I've said this before, some of accounts that were set up, you don't need. And some of the ones that aren't set up, you do need. And you do need consistency in how that's gonna happen. And Kane and I talked about this, we need shared understanding on what's going into
Mhm.
the various categories or accounts, excuse me.
And like, when you're looking for your new software, when you make notes.
Yes.
Example, this is what goes in here, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
yeah, I was gonna say that'd be something to look for. when
And
planning.
that's all part of when you set up your chart of accounts, and that hasn't happened here. Um, So we've been working with, and again, I'm gonna say kudos to Renee because she got dumped into
Mhm.
a real situation with, with little really accounting background herself, it just,
Mhm.
this is where an invoice was coded last time.
Mhm.
I'll put it there this time, and then as you learn and do better, but what has happened is, it has just become a mess, and then that becomes problematic, just trying to stay up with the journal entries that have to happen. And which is why, with the different committees, I give them a monthly recap and the detail so that they can see this invoice went to this account and that's how it got coded. And the form that we use allows for whoever's making the purchase to actually and being responsible for that specific budget to actually do the coding as well. So
I know that, Ryland, you have all that information that there is, which is really good information of where this stuff was coming from. Is there any way we could have some of that information so that we could track it too, to understand a little bit more?
Oh, yeah,
it's just, those are,
Just
what
reports.
he has are just reports that.
Yeah, but I mean, those are pretty interesting with what you had on explaining with the subcontract services, which explains a whole lot, where otherwise, I don't know.
It's,
Oh, will it help you
I don't
understand how bad it is?
I didn't know if there was like somebody you could say, okay, this number equates to this, not on this form, because it would be too busy for what we're trying to do.
It's like across one.
But, to have a cross-reference that you could.
Right.
I used it because when I did the budgets for 2022, I used this as a reference point. Good or bad, that's what we used.
Now, did you do the budget for 2021 as well?
Mhm.
Okay, so you did it for 2
2
years,
years, yeah.
2021 and 2022.
So,
This is where software would really be great.
The other thing I was gonna mention too is that in your council packets too, you have that information about what's falling into the different categories. So on a monthly basis, again, if we can catch it early, the better. Because then that also lessens our costs with Smith and Schaefer to do the journal entries if we can find them and do it inside.
So when we accept the consent agenda, we should have all looked through there before accepting it.
Right. And you're not.
No, I am. I'm just saying that's
Yeah.
what it should be.
Well, and certainly, those kind of things are, you have questions as you're going through any of the information in the council packet. Feel free to shoot me an email, give me a call. You want to meet to resolve any questions. Ryland usually has a list of about 2 or 3 or something,
there's
and Amy
always-
comes in and we just.
and usually the answer is, oh, yeah, that's right. Just can't remember everything.
Yeah.
So,
So even like the next one, workman's comp. That's a little bit sideways too.
That's because we're finally splitting it the correct way.
and for a couple of years, we didn't know. We weren't budgeting properly for workers' comp either, because it was
We had to pay in.
never brought to my attention to add the
Right.
budget, so. there were
Last year.
all kinds of horror stories there, but anyway.
Yeah, and I think I mentioned on our work comp audit, we were able to reallocate. What was it, 106,000, I want to say, something like that. Away from that higher category. So I haven't heard anything back on how that reconciliation
No news
is good news.
is good news. Well, shall we continue? Otherwise, we're 45 minutes into it here, so.
Okay. So, yes, thank you for reminding me that, about the EDA piece. Because that will be an adjustment down below.
So I guess we can say it's gonna be a lesser value than 20,000 or 17,170 for contract.
Right,
And subcontract should be something less than 6,700 too.
well, and when you look at historically, it looks like, you know, in, that would be 2021, you budgeted 15. We bumped that. In 2022, you bumped it to 23, and then for last year, it was 23,000, and then for the current year, 2023, it's about 25,000.
You're combining the two.
Yeah, combining those two, so I guess I kind of see to your point, Dana, that those,
I don't see it, yeah,
yeah,
two separate.
A lot of fun. Very nice.
That's the signs though, that's probably haven't come out of there yet.
So it looks like computer and internet expenses has been not budgeted, but for the last 2 years we had. Year to date now is 4,500 compared to 8,000 a year ago. We did not budget anything for the last 2 years.
and it may be, I'm just gonna go on a limb here. That it goes beyond computer and internet to be anything technological, that could be that, yeah, the sound, and I don't know when you purchase these big.
We had to,
I thought we had money for the sound thing that we pulled from.
oh yeah,
It wasn't from the budget, it was from American Rescue, or it was something that came from.
but we had repairs or something.
Cause that's how we paid for this. And the unit, right, from American Rescue or
American
whatever.
Rescue Plan, they paid for all this, yeah.
So, but that's why I was looking at where the $4,500 is.
So, okay, so here's another anomaly. Because the American Rescue Plan, ARPA money, shows up as a revenue account. But the expenditures are not tied to an ARPA expense account. They're distributed to the applicable category. And then you've seen Ryland's been tracking on an Excel spreadsheet for us to actually reconcile that.
It's all meant to be an in and out, so.
Which would be the
You'll go to
reimbursable
zero next
expenses
year.
that there is.
What's that?
Would have been reimbursable expenses then to go against that.
Oh, the sign and, I'm sorry,
No, for just, I was looking at the computer and internet for like this stuff here, it comes from American Rescue, it would be reimbursable, right?
office supplies, equipment or whatever. I mean, we have, BevCom, we pay BevCom,
Right,
that's phone and internet, I'm assuming. For a computer, for Wi-Fi.
Well, but then I was looking at your, yeah, you have internet charges that are for budgeted. The telephone expense doesn't have anything, so I'm thinking that,
It goes to each community center. Public Works. Broken down to the different departments. But there should be something for the, nothing for financial administration, but it's probably in the,
Ain't our crowns, make it to be.
community center, you know, telephone expense, $1,400 back on page 6. I would think for each of the telephone Verizon bills, for the phone numbers, the 4405, that would come off of the financial administration.
I think that's what it is. Well, I don't know. There is community.
And telephone, I'm assuming it covers Wi-Fi too, it's all one bill.
But
I mean, that looks closer.
to the extent that we can identify the difference. He probably is trying to do that.
Do we have to have a different internet for downstairs?
What's
The
that?
provider,
Gold Rush?
Or do we get billed?
Gold
Like,
Rush
they're
pays
different.
separately.
Yeah,
for stuff.
but I just mean, do we have different?
So the service comes out of Gold Rush, is that what you're asking? So is that totally separate from the city?
Yeah, we have our own phone, we have telephone, Bevcom phone bill.
And it goes there, it doesn't come, well, I thought maybe it came to us that we paid or something like that. That's what I think these were.
For sure, I know that Joanne gets a bill from Bevcom
Okay,
for the Gold
never
Rush.
mind then.
But I will say. We have 3 different. Bills related to phone and. Internet.
That'd be fire.
You have a
department.
different charge for you over there, Kate?
Separate.
So you get your own bill over there?
But community center, I think there's 3 bills. There's telephone, 2 telephone lines, a fax line, and then internet. So I don't know how it's all broken out in the billing.
I'm talking about the vendors too, because you have Bevcon. We have SEESI
ESI, yep.
And on-site,
and
for community support.
yeah, that would be a tech
Backup.
support that should be in that financial thing. There's another one, it seems to me.
But
There's
why,
one in Stewartville for your backup of computers. Backup material. Files, I mean. Kind of an odd name, I thought it was.
why do you have 2 separate areas?
Well, because you used to have these handheld phones. Then you move, and then you have the
ESI.
ESI phones, which have something to do with the handhelds, but they,
But shouldn't
Maybe
it
that's
just
something.
all come out of financial or community instead of?
it should come out of administration, really, the financial department,
So it shouldn't
rather
be,
opposed to community
so that,
center, because nobody using or renting the community center has access to a phone, right?
so that
They're
all,
all just for city hall.
so that all should just, it's almost like opposite.
What about fire
Yes.
department? Is
So
that
that
totally
just needs-
separate?
Totally separate.
So the line item for number 6 should really just go to number,
Township doesn't have
Page
anything
2.
separate.
Page number 6, which were you at on 6?
the telephone expense on number 6 should really be it shouldn't be under community center, it should be under. It should be under financial administration. And then that, get rid of whatever telephone thing this is. Look how much more in me, Sunny.
I know this is week 2 of 3.
We're gonna keep
Nice.
sleuthing this
meetings.
out. We gotta, yeah, I know.
Oh, let's see. American Rescue Plan, the expense, account for expense,
Oh, are
So we
you seeing
had-
an expense account?
huh?
Are you seeing an expense account?
Yeah, the 42951.
Yeah, I'm just looking at that one, cause we had 105
Yeah,
and some change budgeted, and we only used 53. We know what's under that one?
So,
Our
yeah,
signs.
well, I don't have a spreadsheet, but right now we don't have 105. It's closer to. Where right now, if we pay for the signs, electronic signs and, we just paid for the digital controls for the water. And, we got like $4,800 left. Out of 108,000, it really was 163,000 or 100. Okay, 163, 170,000, we used all of it, but 4,500 by the time we get these signs and so, and the stairs. If we get stairs. There's
For
like
the
$4,800.
chair lift, but there
The
is.
chair lift, yeah.
So we'll be over, is that what?
No,
you're
No,
saying?
we're
it's
all-
gonna be a zero, we're gonna zero everything out.
but if you add those two
But if,
budgeted numbers for 2022 and 2023, that's more than what you're.
Yeah,
Oh, you only carried over the,
yeah, the
the
106,
unspent
it's
stuff
really,
budget.
yeah, it's.
Okay. Okay, so check into that.
It'll be zero
but why?
for 2024. From an expenditure standpoint, well, no, it's gonna be something that's on that spreadsheet, which I don't have here with me, so. I can send everybody an email with that spreadsheet, just to explain that. It explains we got 2 deposits. They're 2 years, 1 or 2 years apart. And it's been in the packet several times, but I'll just send that out again to everybody. Let's go on.
Actually, it will be in the September packet because
Some of the
of the
resolution.
resolution to go with those, the signs will be,
On that one.
so,
Okay.
yeah, so.
So really, some was some carried over? And
Yeah.
and you used it, okay. Okay,
I'm guessing that's what
It'll
happened.
be identified by resolutions 2022 dash something, 2023 dash something, so.
okay.
So I misspoke earlier when I said there wasn't an account set up. Thank you for finding that.
Do we need to have grant reimbursement in there when we have zeros all the way through? 42981.
I don't know why that's- So to answer your question, if they are, consistently zeros across, then we can delete them. But if in any of the history of this system,
We'll lose
it
it.
was used once, it won't let you
Oh, okay.
So
delete the
probably
account.
got
All
you.
right, so that's probably
And,
happened.
and if you go back, let's say you get a new system and you go back, that's your only way of getting back.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we could probably make it inactive, but
Right.
not. delete it.
Your miscellaneous expense, anything that doesn't fit.
That really is, and that's a last resort kind of thing, so you can see.
Well, you did pretty good this year. We only have
Yep,
185 in there. Last year you had 5961, so.
Unallocated is almost the same as miscellaneous,
Right, and unallocated is both zeros.
the same, I mean, it's just a synonym.
Well, and unallocated could really be in terms of. my practice was always, if it went into miscellaneous, that means I needed to look at that to journal entry it where it really belonged. Unallocated may very well be that that's kind of, if you're using a budget that doesn't include any cents, fractions or, you could dump something in there to make your budget balance.
That's what you do with the reconciliation discrepancy.
Right, that's separate when you're actually doing, your bank reconciliations and you're reconciling the accounts, yeah.
Oh, that was pretty big last year.
That was your
$64,000.
2022 budget. I mean, 2022.
Actually, what was the audit for 62?
Well, they would have made those.
64, yeah.
ones. I guess so.
When we jump down to the planning and zoning. Like, see, the first one, salaries and benefits, we had 71,000. Plus budgeted, we only used almost 7,000. You know what we were looking at?
Yeah, when we were looking at that, I think last year when we put that in, we were gonna have kind of a monthly outlay that there was, who was doing our work for planning and zoning and everything. So we were gonna monthly have that fee that totaled like $48,000. So I know that was that part of it.
It wasn't that, isn't that Phil?
Well, it wasn't just Phil. We were looking at saying, okay, if we have a monthly allotment that we expect them to do all the work that we wanted to do would fit into that category on a monthly basis,
Yeah,
remember?
and I remember.
Because
there was a
Kathy
lot of-
had mentioned that, yeah.
This is just our staff salary being
Yeah.
spread out.
This is in-house. That's why those are shaded, because those are
And
all gonna come back. Yeah, salaries and wages, employee health benefits, para contribution, and payroll taxes.
So they'll all be charged back at some point.
Those numbers I'll fill in when I do that spreadsheet of all the employees and how we're allocating their time based on data that was, now that we are actually contributing with our new time sheet that spreads the time so we can better allocate and see if we need. But if I remember correctly, from last year's budget, or I'm sorry, the current budget, 71.4, that included my time. I'm sure it included a bunch from Renee because she's processing, believe it or not, all the building permits and stuff like that are falling under planning and zoning, and so I know there's her time in there.
So what you're saying though, just so I'm understanding you right, so we budgeted the 71 and we're only at 68 because all of that has not come back out.
But it's close.
Right, because, yeah, okay. So, yeah, here, planning and zoning was going to be part of the. And we need big rulers, right? Okay, so planning and zoning was going to be part of the project specialist. Part of her time because it's reworking all of those files, which are
Okay.
largely planning and zoning based, right?
Right.
And then some admin time, and then there was,
Now would
Yeah.
Phil's come out of that
Corey,
or is that come-
Jim, Renee, Kane, and myself. And again, that's, kind of doing a guess for your entire department, Kane, because we just spread it over the 5 departments, evenly, which now that we are actually coding two departments. That'll be much more accurate on a
And it-
budget number.
And if you look on there, Sunny, my time is split into, I think, 8 categories. Where the public works assistants were only in four
Yes,
categories.
yes. Yes. And then actually, because you don't have an admin, so whatever your admin time is, gets recorded under salaries, under the financial administration.
And the 42302, you're asking about that, that's the planning service.
Thank you. So then,
You got engineering piece.
Yeah, in engineering.
That's what we were
Reimbursed.
looking, I don't mean to interrupt off that, we were looking at the planning services and Jim was asking where Phil's went. For his costs, and it probably would have been under planning services and probably engineering fees between those two.
well, Phil's not an engineer, so.
Okay, then it
those
would be under
in there.
planning service.
Right, and you remember initially back in 2022, we budgeted 12,000 and remember how quickly planning and zoning went through that.
Yeah.
So we did bump that up quite a bit last year. But I'm proposing that for 2024, we take the 2023 number times 2 because you're that
Yeah, it's pretty big
RFP is
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
going to go.
And actually, you're looking, I know we're at 58%, but we're still at 87.45 and at 58%. I mean, we're relatively close to what's going on, I think. For that, so, yeah.
So for building inspection, I think we will have obviously more of that. Are we not increasing it? Because we're doing a better job passing that on to the,
Not really.
Security agreements.
I mean, what's our thought? We're gonna need more money there, won't we, if we're gonna have more building? Instead of just 10%? Public safety building inspection at the bottom of page,
Yeah, the 42,400.
page of 2.
Yeah, and
Or will we for the coming year? Do we think it'll start that quick?
It's already going on right now. I think that it's gonna
Okay.
be coming that quick. Cause we've got to start even with a restaurant with Two Sisters, so you're having something that's. I think gonna be starting pretty quick for the inspection going through with some of that stuff, so.
well,
And
and one of,
that goes into their permit and building inspection, right?
right,
CMS looks at the building permits, they give an estimate of how much it's gonna cost to do the inspection services.
So we're adding that onto their building that they do that.
That's what I'm wondering, are we passing that on?
Are there fees?
Are we doing a better, okay.
we are doing a better job of getting those kind of projects under a cost security agreement, CSA. And collecting funds upfront to help defray when their time spent by your planner, your engineer and attorney in facilitating that. But to your point too, I think we're not seeing as much residential in terms of new construction. We are seeing, and I told the EDA this last night, that I'm seeing an increase in kind of the re-roofs, the finishing the basement, those kind of home improvement things
But you
that
still
we
need
talked about
the
last night.
inspection.
Oh, yeah.
And here's the flip side of that is we'll have to negotiate a new contract with the building official because the current contract expires at the end of the year. So he wants to meet in November and has some ideas about, one, and I'll throw this out there, that we kind of have talked about having applicants put down, like a deposit. And they get that deposit back when the project is final, so that we could, to incentivize projects not carrying on for a year, 2 years, 3 years, which as long as there's progress, we can't pull the permit or anything, but we kind of, it's just a thought. We're talking-
I would push back on that, dude, cause I don't think, I don't know that Homestead County makes you put down a big deposit, do they?
Well, and I.
Or are you talking residential and
Yeah.
commercial?
Well,
residential,
the commercial stuff we do through the
Yeah,
CSS.
Yeah,
residential.
And that is 3,000, give or take, depending on, what the
Be part of the
project is.
scale of project value,
I mean, places must be doing it or you wouldn't suggest it.
a ladder type of expense.
I haven't seen it, that's why. Have you seen it?
I am not a building inspector or I'm planning and zoning, so no, I haven't
mean,
seen
You
it.
commented, so I was just wondering if you.
I'm
knew
just
someone that did.
assuming,
I just-
No, I'm
I'm just
those are
assuming
ideas.
that he would know. I'm gonna defer to the expert.
Well, he's a
One.
creative thinker,
Yeah,
so.
kind of cool. It is kind of cool to think outside the box that way to incentivize projects because we have seen some projects really drag on.
But I think it's gonna be interesting how they react to it too, the resident.
Well, it's just an
Yeah.
idea, yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm
No
just
stress.
saying it would be interesting though. How
My,
would you feel?
If I had to put a deposit
Mm-hmm.
down, I would say get bent, I'll go build somewhere else.
I'm just
You know,
asking, I just, I mean, that's kind of,
Would you? I don't know how
pretty
many
soon,
people would. do
fee
that.
after fee after fee after fee, and more money up front,
Right, right.
The trouble is, a lot of them don't get money up front. There's a lot of it coming out of their pockets to get started.
Yeah,
I think it would
Maybe-
depend on the
maybe
project,
it's-
because you.
Well, the thing to do would be a
building
check.
permit for a
Yeah.
$26,000 roofing job,
Yeah,
they probably won't ever come out and look at it. So why would you pay a deposit on something that?
so I'm thinking more of the big ones, like the garages that haven't come down forever, or you know what I mean, that we see that they don't get
Well-
finished, the projects that don't get finished.
I think that we're
I know.
trying to find a way to look and have a follow-up on those.
right.
Okay, that we could have some teeth in it to be able to get those completed. And that'd be the one that we're waiting for the garage to come down. That we hit them saying, how come it's not done? And it's because the inspector turned around and had an electrical issue that didn't get taken care of, but I think we're watching those closer. Now, and we wanna have a way that we can enforce that, saying, you've gotta finish this. Or have a penalty. That we can put in there, which would, help enforce them to, or give them.
right, and I think, the conversation was, rather than the stick or the carrot, right? It's, rather than try to penalize people, if we can
Incentive.
incentivize it where it's to their advantage. The pushback that I have is that those kind of deposits become a liability for the city because we have to hold them in escrow.
Right, and I think you have to pay interest on that stuff too.
Depending on how
You
we
do
structure
for-
it, sure. So
like
it's
rental
just, I'll
deposits.
just throw that
Yeah.
out there and I appreciate the feedback that you're giving me, so it's kind of.
And I agree with Ryland, I think of like a roof or windows or whatever.
No, electrical, I think is different, maybe electrical.
Yeah, it's just an interesting
That is
concept. I've
spectrum.
never,
Oh, that's a state.
That's state.
That's state, that's right.
yeah, it's an interesting concept. I don't know.
Yeah,
Thank you.
and even like you're saying for a roof, it's kind of like. Are you not gonna get your deposit back, right?
Yeah.
Right.
It's kind of,
But
so
I think.
what
yeah.
it does do, I'm sorry, what it does do is allow the building official to final a project. Or whatever the permit is, because we don't pay on partial permits, we pay on closed permits. So that's kind of where that idea is coming from as well.
Oh, interesting.
I mean, it's interesting concept. You know, so.
Anything else on planning and zoning? Otherwise, I have one comment.
Well, and you can just see that, the 20% came from the planning and zoning commission themselves because they wanted that up, would heavily skewed toward, that planning services for that RFP, so that's why I doubled that. one.
And we also turn around and redoing the book too for our code.
Well, and
Yeah,
that's
look.
embedded in there,
Okay,
in
yeah,
there.
that's,
So the 20%
So,
for just the planning services plus another significant 30% really to.
so the RFPs. Why hasn't that come to council for approval, to pursue an RFP?
because we haven't got anything back yet on the RFP. We just sent the RFPs out.
Why did you do that without approval?
I thought we already had approval for doing both the RFP for that and the RFP for the water and sewer at the same time a year ago, and they just didn't get done. That goes back, even during Paul, when he was on there, which was more than a year ago, when he wanted to have the RFP being done, so.
I know it's been talked about a lot, but I just don't remember council action to pursue it. Does anybody know? Am I missing?
I thought we did, and it was back, you know, it's been almost a year ago, if not a little bit longer than a year ago, when we were gonna do that, so I thought it.
Well, I think there was an RFP for planning services, but I don't remember an RFP for redoing the code book.
Well, this was all, we're just working on it right now. Why, when did it get sent out?
Not
Yeah.
yet, it's. And based on, he saw it on my desk, and so we.
I mean, if we need to bring it up, we'll be
Because
glad to do it. I mean, we were just trying to move ahead with it so that we can. Cause it's been
Yeah,
2006 since we'd had,
Ultimately, it's gonna be a budget, it's gonna be a city expenditure. So
Right.
it seems like it's no different than what we do with asking the fire department for an RFP for a truck. You know, they come to us with a request for approval and we learn more about it. So, but if there's something out there that says we've already done that, that's great, but
I thought that we
Well,
had, that's the only reason why we were trying to move ahead with it, because it just hadn't been done. And we kept talking about it every month on where is it, and so finally they put it together, okay, to do that, to finally get some money to see what's gonna cost. So we don't know what it is until we get that information back, so we know what the cost is associated.
Right, and there is I will say this too, when Paul, Janetta was the chair and we were talking about an RFP at that time, it was for simple planning services, just because, the contract with Stantec for planning services was, well, it was only for a year, it's expired. And it was tied to that 2006 master contract for engineering services. So, but again, so it started out just being that kind of simple kind of thing. And then it's morphed into something much bigger and
yeah,
complex.
the warping,
The warping is.
is concerning.
I mean, you know,
We
we're not.
paid a lot of money for that book from American Code too. You know, it's, I don't know, $6,000, something like that, to take all of our codes and put into a book.
Well, and the
And I don't
sad
know
part
what-
is that they
What
did.
P and Z is looking for a new book.
Well, what we're
From
looking
a council
for,
perspective, do you know what that is?
I know that, I remember discussion just sitting at the meetings, but I don't remember it coming out of P and Z. I just remember it being at P and Z, not brought to council for a broader discussion.
I mean, if you want it, we'll be glad to bring it. I mean, I don't think there's any issue with that whatsoever. We're not trying to
No,
do
I don't think
anything
it is.
against that. We're trying to move ahead with, because the zoning is now getting to be an issue. Because we're changing zoning going through. We did it for the lot sizes and accessory buildings and all this other stuff that we're getting a little bit more pushback off of it, and Bill always says, well, why don't you just simply change this? Well, all of a sudden, we're changing all this stuff and we're trying to figure out.
Yeah, I know Kathy spent a lot of time working on it. I just
Oh,
want
yeah.
to make sure we're all going in the same direction.
Right.
Because right now I don't see that, I guess.
Yeah, Kathy and Wendy were working on this together. We're not going against, they're working together on what they were trying to do with this, so. With what Kathy had done was to try to put everything under the website, so it's easier for people. To find what there is for codes and things, which is what Kathy was working on. Okay, and this all kind of fits into the same thing. There's no strife, it's a very, I think, direct. Direction that they're really trying to work on, but if you want to bring it in front of council, we'll be glad to do.
I think it would be just so council's aware of how the new code book would work and who's gonna be responsible for it. And who's gonna keep it up to date and what is it gonna cost to do that?
Yeah, well, we don't have a cost until we do the RFP, that's where we were kind of going, until we get a cost.
Why,
Well,
Yeah, I mean, is it the cart or the horse, so,
Well,
again,
and
it's,
the other, if, I'm sorry.
sure, no worries.
The other thing is that I think where the mayor is headed to is that it's a city
Mhm.
issued RFP.
Mhm.
And that's what it needs to be, not as opposed to coming from planning and zoning, because ultimately you will make a recommendation. So I'm just making a few little tweaks and I'll share those as well, and absolutely will bring
Yeah,
it back.
no, yeah, we're not trying to keep anything
Yeah,
away from
yeah.
council by any means.
no,
But I think you're
don't see-
talking two different things too, in terms of the RFP, what its goals are.
Mhm.
And what American Legal did. And now all American Legal did for you was codify
Mhm.
bad code. I'm sorry, but it's like even, you know.
Right.
I know,
It is, even with CMS, working with them, and they're trying to help us enforce
Mhm,
our codes as well, and they're seeing inconsistencies, and
oh yeah, there's.
so Sunny, how do you want to handle this? And so then there are some things that I can administratively make decisions on, and some are just gonna require amendments to the code. It's not a big
And I
deal about
guess
that.
I remember a discussion of trying to do that all together,
Yeah, that's under the art.
That's what we
Yeah,
were
okay,
trying to do, yeah,
perfect,
so I mean, that's.
yeah.
I don't like spot fixes.
Well, no, we're trying to not have a spot fix, is
Right.
what we're trying to do.
But at the same time, where we do find something I want it fixed, I'm not gonna let it.
And we
ride
do.
for somebody else.
And we do, we jump into it and fix it and come up with the right language and go from that point, so
Yeah.
we're trying to be very. Proactive when it comes to that, so we can.
Right, let's move on. Page.
3.
Public safety at the very bottom of 2. Is that another one of those, we've only spent 2,700 of 38,000?
Bottom of page 2, public safety.
Yeah. Idea why?
Page 2.
Building inspection.
Oh, yeah. Oh. Well, again, we don't pay until the permit is filed, right?
Okay,
So. And I will say that CMS has not billed us yet. It's taking over.
well,
So,
Really? How long is it, that one?
we must be working on 2.
April, I think we would have paid, you know, something, but.
Fire department.
Okay. We get a fire department, okay, you'll notice we met with the fire department, and first responders. Had one workshop and, we have another one on Monday. You have their data? Their,
Oh,
from that
from the-
meeting? Oh,
For the last meeting?
Yeah.
Yeah, they wanted, 859,000.
I'm gonna,
It's here something.
yeah, and just so you know, they, where you see the yellow boxes in the left column. Those are spacers because they want more detail in some of their, budgeted line items, so we will accommodate that. As we are able to. So for tonight's meeting, I only put in the 2023 budget plus 10%, but I can tell you that they're looking for more than that. On both fire department and then also first responders. On the first responders, I will also say they get no reimbursement on their training like the fire department does. When the firefighters are trained, we can get reimbursed for that training from the state. That's not true for first responders. I'll also say with regard to first responders, and this will come up when we're looking at the revenue side, but their revenue generation from the township has been stagnant, and we're reworking that to more accurately reflect the calls that they do that for. So not a lot to.
Well, the fire department. Proposed budget was $225,380. What they were proposing.
25.
225, 380.
225,380.
Now, did that include,
First responders was, there was a couple of changes they made. There was 66,600. 66,600, yeah. Emergency operations was 12,700. That was this. It was 3120, they were asking 12,700 on the top of page 4.
Well, what'd you say?
12,700. Did I?
So the biggest, you want me to go through some of the highlights of the major, and they were just a couple. The fire department was salaries related. They were going from increasing the salaries to be competitive with the surrounding cities for the officers at the fire. Dan, you can comment too. Did you see their spreadsheet?
I've got it on the drive here, yeah.
So salaries and wages, 41,100. Very top one was 7,000, and they would like to increase that to 16,500. Previous salaries of officers had not increased in many years. Data pulled from other departments in the area show our department is far below the average. Proposed increase of salaries to the chief, 2,500. Assistant chief, 1,500. Assistant chief, 2,500. Training officer, 1,500. Secretary, 500. Total officer salary, 7,500. And data pulled from other departments also show we are far below the average for pay per call. Proposed increase to $15 per hour. Many other departments to consider a call or meeting that lasts greater than 1 hour to require greater payment. Wages have historically varied significantly, with budgeting high due to number of firefighters and multiple firefighters now available to respond to call. So that's a significant increase, but it definitely puts them in line with area fire departments.
You know what communities they didn't do like big ones, right? They did like smaller towns.
Well, they did
Cape-
all of them around here from Pine Island to Stewartville to Byron to Casson. I think they hit all of them and they did population related. I think they did it all. So it wasn't just,
Perfect. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure it was like.
no, they did it, I thought, really well when they
Not
looked at it.
Livingston, Edina, Eden Prairie.
There's one, yeah, apples to apples, perfect.
No.
And those are all bigger cities too. They're 3,000 to 6,000 people. But that's, you know, I think they probably looked at some smaller ones. I don't know, Wanabango and.
And then did they check to see where,
Falls.
did those communities respond to township?
That's kind of the kicker there, yeah.
Cause we don't.
We do not.
Not for fire, but they do for the first responders to go on.
Right, but we're talking fire budget here. So I just wanna make sure like that was compared.
There's a couple different things.
City and
yeah.
mutual aid on the highways.
So,
Did they share the methodology with you?
Yeah.
Well, of course, you're on.
Yeah, I mean, it's all there. Yeah, that did a pretty good job, actually, so.
yeah, some towns offer higher hourly wages and hardly nothing for officers, right? So everyone benefits kind of equally. And then some are the opposite, where the chief makes 5,000, 10,000, but doesn't make anything for a call, right? They don't get paid anything. It's strictly volunteers, so.
And some of them were on a point thing too, that came up, that was, you get so many points for this and so many, I mean, there was. All kinds of stuff that came out and that on how they looked at it, so.
I'd be interested to see.
I don't know, we should make copies, we'll make copies here in a minute,
Right.
so you can see some of the rationale, so
Yeah.
in the discussions, I asked if they would consider a 2-year step increase. But that's a possibility, but that was really, they're concerned about keeping the ones they have and with the new staff they have and so it's obviously a very important issue to them, so.
And I was going to make copies of those, but because we are meeting with them again on
Or you are meeting with them again.
Monday, yeah. That's great.
I wasn't at the second meeting, but I won't call in.
I wasn't there that last time, so it
Right.
was my anniversary.
Oh, that's right.
I wasn't last, but I'll have to take a look, I just didn't bring that calendar with me, cause I've been meeting with those.
With them, so yeah, you weren't here, it was just
Not-
Ryland and I.
Not on
at the
that one,
budget
but
thing.
the other ones, when we've been doing quarterly meetings.
Oh, yeah, that was different, this was strictly budget related.
But what time on this one?
Just continue on with the fire department. The rest of them were minor increases. Operating supplies from 3,000 to 6,000, just because there's more firefighters. Turnout gear. Discussion going on now about they need 6 more sets. Again, they get reimbursed for all of these. It's $4,500 per firefighter. For turnout gear. I'm thinking of jackets. That's what's. Training is from 9,000 to 12,000, just because there's more firefighters and 2,000. Comp insurance going up, 6 more firefighters. From $5,800 to 8,000. R&M equipment, 6 more firefighters, so it's more increasing cost. General equipment from 3,000 to 6,000. Just because there's more firefighters. So there's a new category of pagers. Because pagers are very expensive. We need 8 new pages. Because there's not enough for all of our members. That's $8,000. Radios, all the two radios are 15 years old. There's $21,000 there. Apparel, $300 per person, t-shirt, sweatshirt, soft shell jacket at $7,500. It's all related to mostly just increased firefighters, continuing education development, 6,000. Some of that was disapproved last meeting. Wildland gear. Yeah, 30,000. It would give us 27 sets of wildland gear head to toe. And there's new air packs. 20 new Scott air packs, $15,000. So it's a big number, and you know, it's better to have a big number now and work with the fire department going forward for December, so. First responders was 30,000 increase, salaries. From 8,000 to 15,000. Operating supplies. They're responding to 90% of the calls. There's been a lot of call volume increasing. From 3,500 to 7,500. Dues membership, more people. The proposed budget, new budget, community outreach, CPR classes. T-ball expenses, 1,500, apparel, 4,200, recruitment, retention, gathering, social building, and continuing education, $6,000.
One of the conversations we kind of delved into during our last meeting was, you know, at some point you can't keep recruiting for people you can't pay for. Kind of like any employer, you know what I mean? And so I think that's maybe a conversation to just again bring up, which they'd already had that conversation. They were already talking about it. But also, I don't know if you know this, but, and this is just on a personal level, because I saw one night which is great, but we pay people per respond, each call they respond to, right?
Historically, yeah.
So one night there was a call in my neighborhood. And there had to have been 8 responders, lots and lots of responders. And lots in their own personal cars. And I'm just kind of like, how do we, you know what I mean? Cause there's not enough for even that. It wasn't a mass casualty. It was just what, you know, so how do we rein that in? Because there's not enough, there's too many people there. Most of them didn't even go in the house. Cause I was watching in my driveway. So would it, you know, do they charge for that, or do they write that down that they responded?
Sure.
Well, in Pine Island, if they report to the station, they're paid. They don't all go on call. But if they don't have them report to the station, then pretty soon they don't report. And they think, well, he's coming, I ain't coming. He's
Yeah.
coming, I ain't coming, so.
But
give them-
they have a system where they say, I'm responding.
Yep.
So they should know who's responding and if there's enough people responding or not.
Yep.
Okay, I just wanted to know if I'm going,
Don't respond.
am I going down the right path here in saying that I don't know, I wanna have that conversation because. As a healthcare worker, I know what happens if you go to a code and the entire room is full of people.
Yeah.
Most of them are standing around, not doing anything, right? Like, that's not a thing that we need to pay for, is what I'm saying. So I
Yeah.
want to be clear with them in maybe our conversations that this is,
But he is the assistant chief.
Yeah. So the reason I quit being a first responder is all the BS calls. Don't wake me up in the middle of the night because you had a sore tummy for 3 days, right? That's not 911.
Right.
But we're paying our staff to do that, to respond to those calls, right? So.
How does that? Because Dan does track that.
Yep.
You know, and it has an effect, right, on their years of service, which then ultimately reflects in their retirement.
For fire department. First responders do not have a retirement.
So anyway, this is just a conversation, it just really, that night I was like,
Yeah.
That's-
You're
that's a lot.
spot on.
Yeah, okay, I just wanted to, all right.
You're spot on. It's just it's a thin line there you're walking because, you know, is
You
two
leave-
people enough? Is three people enough? Is four too many?
Or you say something and then they just not respond because they think others are going to.
But they don't, but there is a system.
There is a system.
That wouldn't happen because they say it all the time, always choose I am responding.
Sure,
And you're supposed to respond in the ambulance,
correct.
not in your own personal
I saw
vehicle.
that too.
There's a lot of.
So,
Yeah.
so, and with that, what happens with that, people are racing. And they're driving irresponsibly down, and this was discussed that night, this was reviewed and like a reminder that that's not appropriate. So they, you know, there is oversight and they are. But I'm just, that needs to be a talk, especially when we talk to budgets and salaries. Are we using that appropriately? And the thing is, like, I'm super excited about the quality of the first responders, there's so many, there's so many paramedics, there's so many ER nurses, it's good.
Yeah.
I don't wanna, discourage anybody from responding, but not everybody has to respond, just like in any sort of medical setting. You can't all be there because you can't all do something.
And in the application that I'm responding, can they see how many are responding?
Yeah, that's it.
So can you cancel people that are responding? I mean, is the program have that capability?
I imagine it could be, yeah.
Probably Dan and Johan.
I'm sure that could be done.
Yeah, I don't know, just
It's
a
not
thought.
your,
Yeah, and isn't that kind of a rule? They report to the station or they don't report?
Yeah. Cause yeah,
so we
Traffic
have,
control officer going out with me.
we recruited a lot, we need to train.
I think that, yeah,
Need some monitoring or something. We'll get copies before you leave. Okay. But that's what I would propose, is we just leave that. Continue to make it a discussion point. On page 4, Public Works, that's fun.
so Public Works, maybe Sunny, you can chime in at any time. That first one there, 43,000. It's been zeros for 5 years or what you see there. So I'd be fine with getting rid of that or making it active, consolidating that.
That just goes between parks, water and sewer.
And as I see it is, Public Works is a big umbrella under which water, sewer, parks and trails.
Ground, streets, and roads.
Yeah, there you go.
So maybe I should start off with that. If we could all get on the same page for what we're calling things, right?
Sure.
So Public Works is 5 categories. Water, sewer, facilities, grounds, and streets. I think everything can fall into those categories.
Say it again.
Sewer, water, facilities, grounds, streets. So grounds is parks. Property. Facilities would be the building, the structure. Streets, our streets, water and sewer, those are pretty simple, so, if we could, so if, what got us to those 5 departments, I guess we call them, is the new timesheets. How we're categorizing what we do. If we're working on streets, it's streets wages. If we're working, and this is where you'll see it in the next categories is there's general maintenance groundskeeping, and there's parks and rec, okay? But they're kind of the one and the same. So what I'm saying is combining or splitting those categories into a grounds department. It's tree removal on grounds, right? But you could have tree removal on streets and roads. So each department can have the same thing, but
They
it's,
can have a task.
yes, its parent department, streets, can have tree removal. It can also have streets mowing. It could have, but you could also have grounds where it's tree removal and grounds mowing, right? You can separate things within those 5 categories, so. And that would align with our time.
So that's how you track your, like mowing, you track parks, right of ways.
Right. Exactly.
The seasonal people are always going to be, not always, historically get coded to the seasonal. But we were talking today, you could have seasonal people on call to come in and shovel snow or, you know, clear, I don't know, whatever Kane wants to dream up, but historically, from an accounting standpoint, that's probably the one consistency that we've had,
Yeah.
is that seasonal people go to, actually, they have their own department, and actually had 2 departments,
Right,
one for each employee.
right.
Last year we combined that.
So, like I say, if you look in your budgets, there's Parks and Rec, and there's also general maintenance groundskeeping. So. They're kind of one and the same is what I'm getting at. So if we could combine or separate those 2 departments into grounds or. Call it whatever we want to call it, but. And then each department. Streets, grounds, facilities, water and sewer would have workers' comp, salaries and wages, payroll taxes, para. You know, cell phone reimbursement, mileage, training, each one of those categories I'm talking about. Would be identical. They would have those, the root items you need in that category, right? And then some will have more things, you know, within the parks one, there's general equipment, recreational activities, repair and maintenance, buildings, equipment. You know, there's, some of them will have more things, but others may not, like streets and roads. My one idea for streets and roads is, let's remove the tree removal department. And let's split that into grounds and streets and roads. That's where the trees are gonna get removed. On the grounds, in the parks, on our properties, or in our right of ways, on our streets and roads.
Yeah.
So completely removing tree removal from what you see here. Yep, let's split that money in half and say 10 here, 10 there, and but like I say, each category would have the salaries and wages, the benefits, the paras, the training, the lodging, the mileage reimbursement, right? But, and we could categorize that. Did people go to a water training? Did they go to a tree training or a streets and roads training? We could really categorize what we're spending our. Help me out here.
What we're spending on the tasks, well, but even at the higher
By
category.
Yeah, by department, you know, we're tracking our time every day, where we're spending our time. It'd be nice if the budget would match.
Yes.
You know, like we've got community center as one of our budgets here. Well, community center's got. What has it got? It's got salaries and wages, but it's a building, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
I feel like a building should be its own category. What's it take to have the utilities, property taxes, the insurances, right? Like, we could do that for City Hall. What's it cost to run and operate this place? Not inside City Hall offices, you know, none of that. That's all financial administration or categories elsewhere. But what's it cost to keep the lights on? And we could do that with the shop, the fire hall here. That'd be one way. Keep a building separate from, you know, wages and workers' comp.
So just real quickly about the community center, I think we talked about. Sonny mentioned it, and I think everybody jumped up and shouted yes, but contracting insurance or contracting cleaning, so that'd be a new line item. Under community center,
Well, that could be,
or does that fall into labor contract or something?
that could fall under something different. I guess what I'm saying is, if we wanna track the community center, a building. Not wages, not salaries, not workers' comp, let's just track the building. Let's let these other 5 departments, water, sewer, streets, roads, facilities. Absorb the workers' comp and the wages and the,
Mhm.
all those items.
Yeah.
You know,
You could put under contracted services for the. What would be going on for cleaning and stuff like that, or something like those things.
Well, and this might be something good to track if we're looking at expansion of our buildings in the future, like we could say, this building is old as dirt and it costs a
Right.
fortune to run it and to heat it and to, you know what I mean? And that could help with grants writing in the future, all sorts of things to break that out.
So are you saying from page 4, where public work starts, all the way through the top of page 6, first line, it says total for Department 45,120.
Your
45,123
community center,
down there too, so.
general maintenance, so you go all the way down to.
So you're gonna take the time to, and work with Sunny to realign all these line items?
I really think it's worth it, you know, if each one of those 5 departments could have the specifics, you know, the payroll, the para, the health, the salaries, the workers' comp. If each one could have that to align with our time cards, our time,
And I think it makes sense, 'cause if you think of, you know, like parks, then you can see what does parks really cost us? You know, what do we spend on parks, or what do we spend on the building, or, you know, I think it makes sense, and then. You know, collectively, if you want to understand what do we pay in wages. You know, you grab all wages from all the different,
right,
I think it makes
So you can
sense.
come up with, well,
I mean,
is it easy for the guys to turn around and to split that up on their time card or however they're doing it? How's that been?
decent,
Okay.
it's gotten better.
No, I mean,
Right
as
now
long
it's-
as it's workable for those guys on what's going on.
Yeah, I'm gonna say that I've been appreciative of how it's been embraced, other than we had, you know, one that that didn't understand it, and maybe I just didn't articulate the purpose behind it, but it really is important when it comes to workers' comp insurance, because that's all payroll based. And because you historically have not had those different separations, everything got dumped in the highest category. And what's your argument? Well, they spend it, well, what's your justification? What's your methodology for saying they spend, you know, 30% of their time mowing the lawn? Really? You know, this way, we have that tracking, and now it's getting actually coded to for the most part. I mean, I'm not gonna say we've perfected the thing, but we've we started
But if
out
it's
with
workable, then
yeah.
it has been workable, that's
Right.
good,
because
okay,
the
so.
whole point is, I don't need them spending 15 minutes a day figuring out how they spend the day either.
Right.
I mean, they kind of, and they do large projects. It's not like, it's harder for us in the office to really actually track that, because you know, you'll go on a call that with Fitzgerald and you know where that's gonna go, right?
Sure.
We start a project and it's interrupted by someone coming in on a different thing, someone, so ours is a little bit more complicated, but we're utilizing the same categories as everybody, it's a universal timesheet that's being used by everybody.
No, and I think it's really good too, like we're saying, what does it cost to operate a building like this, and you'll have a number, okay, and what's it costing for our parks, this is where it's at, okay, I think that's great to know, really good.
Oh, yeah, if you guys will allow Sunny and I to work through that and kind of make those 5 departments, cause everything that we do, I think we can sum up in those 5 departments.
Makes your job easier, go
Yeah.
for it.
Mhm.
Okay,
And I'll make our job easier too. I was gonna say.
Well, it'll make it easier for us to understand in the long run too.
yeah, absolutely, and like, I've always been kind of stumped on the community center having its own, and then, well, what kind of supplies and who's responsible for that line item and
Right.
where does my responsibility start and stop for this building and, when multiple hands are involved and. So,
I have a question for you, Kane, on the
Yeah.
street lighting then. Do you see that moving under streets and not
do.
being its own
I do,
department?
we can move both those electrical and capital outlay under streets and roads. We can
Street
keep,
lighting, you mean?
yep, street lighting. We can keep ice and snow removal separate, cause that is kind of its own animal. But we don't categorize our time
Right.
under snow removal.
We contract that out
We
anyway.
contract that out. If we do snow removal, it gets,
Good. In front of the fire department.
so here's the deal, we could
Yeah.
say we were at the fire hall, so that's facilities, or for an hour. But then we went to Orinoco Park for an hour, right? Do you want us to split up all of our day? Were we on a street or an alley or a park or a water or sewer? You could get really fancy with splitting all of our tasks up.
That's a nightmare.
Or is snow removal a service that the Public Works Department does? Citywide.
I think that makes it simpler by what you're doing and at least classifying it as snow removal. Right.
Or it's or we put it under streets and roads. Historically, we've done that. We put it under streets and roads. But you're right, we do the fire hall, city hall, we do our well houses, our reservoir. And more sewer coming up here as well, so.
But to split that out, that would be a nightmare.
It would.
Like, okay,
You
now
just
I'm
have
driving
it-
into.
It's minimal time each place, that's.
Yeah,
Yeah,
So I mean, this way at least we'd have it isolated as being snow and ice removal or whatever with that, so we know that that's where it's at for your time.
they're
I
not.
think that's a
doing
good way to
anything
start
else.
it out. Town of 3,000 might be different.
and once we have. Down the road, if we have departments that are taking care of just water or just sewer or just parks. That's when we can separate that out. How much time did the Parks Department plow today? Versus the water and sewer departments, right? We're not there yet. And so that brings me to my next item, if you guys allow Sunny and I to work through those changes in the weeks to come. My next item, then, my next big ticket, big picture priority would be to add a full-time employee to the 2024 budget. There's a lot of unknowns with the sewer facility operations, with people's services. But the model I can think of for 2024 and beyond would be a rotation of myself and 3 public works assistants at the plant, with the water, with the parks, with the streets and roads, facilities, just kind of rotating the 4 of us through each department, and then allowing all of us to get time and get our licenses, our hours in. And with that, my thought is we could go away from seasonal help next year. And have our full-time staff take on some of that seasonal task.
I think the cross training is good, you know?
I don't know. All you're doing is raising the budget. If you're gonna treat everybody to get their B license, you figure out what it's gonna cost you as a community to keep them guys here.
Right.
You know, I mean,
That's a
one person,
consideration.
one person, get a license. I understand that, but if you train 4 people, you got 4 people with B license, they walk in, they say, we want B wages or we're leaving.
No, I understand what you're saying with that. What I was thinking
Oh, it's
about
great.
too, no, is you're gonna have, somebody's gotta be on call. And, the things are gonna come up and you can't have one person be on call every weekend that goes along. There's gotta be a time that you can have other people to rotate for what's going, because the calls are gonna happen. They don't happen normally between 8 and 5. They usually happen at 3 in the morning. Or 5 in the morning or whatever else, but
Yeah, 'cause
Yeah.
Having somebody on call is gonna change. I mean, we don't have it today.
Correct, we don't
Personnel
have,
Policies will have to pay, there's gonna be policies made for how we handle on call.
yep,
Not that we can't do it, it's just we don't have it today, so.
yep, and I think, with sewer being our second utility, we are gonna need to be responsive to our customers, our residents, and so with that, I'm just thinking of this 4-person model for next year. We are getting sewer, there's a lot of work involved there. All these connections and hookups next year. I don't see us slowing down. I see development, I see building, I see more of us. More work.
The thing I think about is at some point, we're not gonna have contracted employees, right?
That'd be the
Out
goal.
there.
That'd be the goal some days to operate it without a contracted operator.
And I would think that we would wanna put some kind of a plan in place as to, okay, when do we wanna not have that? Cause that's super expensive.
Jim, how long has Pine Island had a sewer plant? Pine Island don't have an A operator.
No,
I mean, that is the big thing,
I
right?
think
Yeah.
succession planning is important. But not really right now. I think we have to concentrate where we're at right now, where we're growing.
I think it's pretty, oops.
No, that's fine.
A B operator, I think is important,
Yeah.
So to get an A operator, you're gonna need 7 years. I'm gonna need 7 years from day one
And that's expensive.
to get my time in, to even take my A test, right? And most people fail at their first time. But first you start off with your D. So say we get operational this fall. 1 year from then, I could take my D license. And then I can work underneath an A operator. 2 years later might be, 3 years later, my C, then might be, then finally 7 years down the road, I could take my A test. So the plan is there. But it's so far out.
So I guess with seasonal, I struggle a little bit. I don't know how to say this. I struggle a little bit with putting our full-time employees on the lawnmowers.
Due to,
I don't love that. And every time I go to a lot of communities, I do a lot of small communities like Plainview and, just all the little ones. And it's always the youngster, like the young kids home from college or whatever, going around the side by side, watering the flowers, doing the trimming, and I like that. I don't know. I struggle with thinking that's the best use for an adult with, not that these kids don't have skills, but for a skilled adult.
there's disadvantages and advantages to the seasonal
Sure.
employees, there are.
I agree with Dana, I just feel like. And you explained it already, there is gonna be growth, you're gonna have all those 100 and some water hookups. And inspections, and I think we need. full-time people doing that, you know, but I would say that I thought we did a great job of mowing with our seasonal mowers. I mean,
And
but I think if we look at seasonal, we should try and get anybody. Nope. Do not have seasonal employees less than 16 years old. Cause I do think there's a certain amount of,
Do we?
growing up. Yeah, we have one 14-year-old. So, but 16 is just tends to be take a little more responsibility and.
there's definitely this year was definitely a learning curve. We had some younger people, we had
Less younger people.
less younger people, yes, it was,
You had things on both ends of the
You have a
spectrum.
hard time filling those positions.
yes, we had we had pretty much 3 applicants for those. We had a few more, but
I think we had 6 total, but somebody was moving out of town, or no, I'm getting these.
So do you think by filling it with a full-time employee that you could pay one person more, then you'd be more likely to have a reliable? Is that what your thought is?
my thought is you could have there would be less day-to-day supervision, oversight.
Yeah.
There'd
get
be, I think there's some advantages to that. But this is just an idea, nonetheless, next year and the following years, I can see the department growing, and I think adding a full-time employee for 2024 is critical. And if we wanna go down the seasonal mowers staff next year, we can do that. But it's almost like I need to assign one of my full-time staff to be with them, right?
Let's offer that as a possibility,
Yeah,
not a must, because I do think we need to increase our wages. I mean, we're competing against McDonald's at $20 an hour.
And Quick Trip.
And,
Couldn't you try to get some seniors or somebody retired?
because we will get people.
Well, we do have,
We tried that.
we do have a full-time employee that came to us as a seasonal retired person and then unretired. So that
We had
did
another
work.
one that there was too, that was part-time, that was part of it, and we talked about some salaries too, when we had some other interviews on some other stuff that's going on and where we need to be with the personnel part of it, so.
and so with four full-time staff, I think we could do on-call 24/7. We could rotate every 4th week, you're on call, we could have that coverage. We could,
Well, here's a thought too, because I know this is expensive, but when you talk about doing that, would you have to hire him January 1st? Or could you budget it that you could bring him in July 1st or June 1st? And that
That's-
way you would turn around and save that money and catch that part going forward, which I think would make more sense
Going
and
into the
fit
winter.
into the budget, you know?
yep, and hopefully this winter, we have time, our current staff to get involved at the treatment facility, start learning, start taking on roles and responsibilities. In the beginning, yes, our contractor out there is gonna have a lot of time, but the more responsibility we take on, the less time they'll be there. So there's a trade-off. There's the more that they trust us to be there and be responsible and be on call and the less they have to, it'll be better for them. I mean, I'm offering them a partnership. And with that partnership is you've got 4 full-time staff that can be there and respond.
And that partnership
all
is
part
that
of it.
training.
That's part of the
Negotiations
negotiating
too.
and the contract.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, because we don't, like we were talking in the staff meeting earlier. It's kind of like, yes, I do want your department to go after, Ottman or whoever will plow in, back out, and that's it.
Sure.
And if it's necessary for us to ward off some real complaint calls, to go out before it gets frozen and clean out some of those, cul-de-sacs and stuff. But I'm really, hesitant to put the city in a position where we aren't able to hold a contracted vendor accountable for what their contract calls for them to do. So that's kind of, coming from, the wastewater treatment plan. I totally get and encourage that you want to all 4 people cross-trained and stuff like that. I do agree a little bit with Carl that I think we need to be careful about how we're gonna do this. Year number 1, you getting the license, unless you delegate that differently. From my perspective as city administrator, I'm looking to you to follow that path. And appreciate that you want to involve your team and stuff like that too, but I really am gonna be looking to you to do that. And also as the owner's rep, if you will,
Absolutely.
out there, because it is our plant. But it is helpful to have them be responsible and not be in a position where they can say, oh, something happened at 3 o'clock in the morning, let's call Kate. It's under their contract for some of that stuff, so.
Correct, and that's those,
Through this learning early 3 to 5 years for sure, I'm gonna say.
yep, there's details there that need to get worked out, and we're gonna learn more tomorrow and the weeks to come, I mean. Nobody.
So,
Go ahead.
so this 4th person, do you have an idea about the job description?
I would say
Think
this,
about it.
I would say the same thing, public works assistant,
Okay, and maybe just, I don't think I think everybody's talking in favor of the 4th person, it's just a matter of when maybe that 4th person starts for budget purposes, and
right,
we get operating and, we still got 83 grinder stations and maintenance on those, and so.
yep,
Yeah.
I wanted to get on your guys's.
Yeah, I think that if we delay it and don't look at hiring somebody till the middle of the summer or the first part of the summer, it might be a budget way to be able to do it and get them in. Because during the winter, you don't have that much anyway. You've got, well, you do, but especially this winter, we never know what's gonna be going on. But I'm just saying, I think that might make sense budget wise to be able to do it and get that
Hey,
in.
I'm gonna, I'm just gonna throw this out there, cause I really kind of see this happening, because when you think about this summer, it was kind of a weird year where the lawn mowing probably didn't take as much time as it usually does, just because we had lived in a drought.
Yeah.
I have a feeling that you're gonna come to us and ask for a seasonal employee, because you cannot, there's not enough people to hop on the lawnmowers and get all the mowing done.
You're right.
So I feel like we would, so I just wanna be
So-
like,
So take back that comment of not doing seasonal,
Yeah,
but first and foremost, having that 4th full-time employee where we can rotate staff and we can enjoy our time away from work. Right now, there's 2 of us and.
Yeah.
right.
that makes sense, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and you're hiring, right? Like you're.
Well, the other thing too,
We've got someone starting next Monday.
I think we gotta turn around and look at what we're gonna be doing for wages too, which is what you were saying, Riley. That we have.
But I'm just looking at where we're at on page 6 on seasonal, if we can just talk about that for a second. Now, we're just about, we're done with our seasonal employees.
Yep.
And we spent 11,453 as into July, we have 1 more month on a $26,000 budget. So we've either overestimated or something there.
Well, we wanted staff to start back in May.
Oh, that's right, it was a
Yeah,
late
they didn't
start.
start.
And we never got,
No, 3 months.
because we had 2 of the.
Yeah.
2 of the employees didn't start till mid-June.
But you're looking at a 10% increase to 31,000.
So that 10%.
That was just me,
Yep,
that's just
I
me.
mean, yeah, but you're looking at
Yeah.
31,000, so
But what if we
can we
did,
take that back and just see what
yeah,
type
but
of salaries for 500 hours for 3 people.
Yeah, the problem is if you get students or not. You know, if you get students, you don't get them for May, you only get them June, July, August, so.
Not full August either, because they're usually off.
He's leaving too next week, isn't he?
Today was his last day as well.
His last day was Monday,
Oh. Okay.
Last one.
3 days ago.
Yeah, and if you don't have students, people are gonna want more money.
Right.
Cause they can
Uh,
go quick.
if we-
trip.
All I'm saying is if we stick with that $32,000 figure for 500 hours, what would our hourly wages be for 3 people?
We'll
I don't
figure
know.
it out,
Yeah,
because we're doing this, working on a wage scale system, steps and classifications and stuff.
Right.
I mean, what if you did
I
decrease
think we
it?
need to pay more than $16 or $17.
What if you did decrease the amount of seasonal workers, if you had that one full-time and you had that one supervisor role, you know, one person had a supervisor role and you had only. Whatever,
yeah, there's different models we can,
Yeah.
you know, come up with and,
Where it's a lead. And it's-
yeah.
The supervisor tends to put them in a higher category.
Yeah, you gotta,
I just, yeah. I mean, I don't need to get in specifics
Yeah.
with the council here, but I know that we had struggles this year
sure.
and I couldn't do anything about it. It was just,
Mhm.
my hands were tied.
but you made it through.
We did make it through and I'm grateful for the help we had. It was,
Mowing looked great, up and
Oh,
down the
yeah.
right of ways and sign and everything.
And nobody complained about it.
Perfect.
you know, the one thing we did with our seasonal staff is we offered them flexibility in hours. So, you know, one of them didn't show up until 10 because of sports and workouts and the other one as well. So that's why those wages are low because we just didn't have,
Didn't use it, okay.
they didn't work the hours.
But that entices getting the lower paid
Yeah,
staff.
but it's not easy to make sure you
It's
get
not.
everything taken care of in town
Right.
either.
I know this year, we've had the most breakdowns on mowers than
Really?
ever. It was terrible.
The new ones
Absolutely,
too, the newer ones?
absolutely.
Serious.
All 3 mowers. So,
It's hitting stuff or just where? By the way,
like you say, I don't need to get into specifics, but
Okay.
it was a learning year. Please, please think about that for full-time employee, and if it is 3/4 of the way through the year, halfway through the year, whatever, I think now's the time. Orinoco was growing and
So you'll work with Sonny on looking at that 4th person salary potentially, or?
Yeah, because we have, the other thing is, you gotta remember, it's not just the wage, the hourly wage that you're gonna pay somebody.
Mhm.
It's all the other things.
Mhm.
Which, I did look at, not did this to you, but excuse me, through, July, in public works, under the umbrella, salaries through July were 146,900. And I have those broken down by category, so within the fund 100, that was almost 80% of your salaries. Came from just those things and water and sewer. Oh, I'm sorry, what I meant to say was 80% of the total paid wages and benefits for Fund 100. 80% of that was salaries only. So that means we're paying 21% in benefits.
It's not bad.
But did we end up
About a
paying,
third, so that's not good.
No, I'm just saying, you know, just quick and dirty kind of math kind of stuff, but that's because it's gonna vary by employee too.
Yeah, and that's not a bad 20% is pretty reasonable, and very reasonable.
did we have
So
to pay out
21 to 22%.
months? Anybody left? Did we have any of that?
Last year.
Yeah.
Yeah, what? Oh,
Yeah,
not last year. Are you saying last year, 2022?
This year.
this year,
This year, we had one.
yeah, that we had one,
Yes.
a comp time, or vacation, whatever.
Yeah.
So that comes out of that, right?
Yep, that's
Yeah.
included in that.
Wow, that was, I mean, you're doing good on the burden, if that's all you're doing is 20%, that's phenomenal.
Well, and, but, I mean, we all know, personnel committee members, colleagues, that those are things we wanna look at, and those are things that staff wants us to look at. And how we're gonna do that, so that's all another work in progress.
Now,
Okay.
what's this, I'm just gonna put this out, maybe next time we're gonna discuss it, but what about admin, like office staff? Is that something that we're gonna need to address as well?
Yep.
Yeah, I figured.
If we could- Just one last comment about the bottom line, if you go to page 7, and we talked about a new department, the Economic Development Department, just looking at those numbers, but
Oh, yeah. I
and
didn't.
a transfer out of CIP for 100,000, there's 1,415,000. And that doesn't include fire department additional 263,000. And first responders and emergency operations,
216.
263. There's 9,000 for increase in emergency to 32 for first responders and 122 for fire department over their 2023 budget, so.
Okay.
We're talking some huge numbers here from 1,066,000. Which is this year's budget. No. 1,376,000. That's just ballpark figures.
Mhm.
Yes.
Mhm.
So it's about a $300,000 increase. You know, we've had
whittle it
really
down.
modest years of taxes. I'm not saying we need to do that, but that's just to give you where we're at.
We'll whittle it down. Whittle it, that's hard to say.
Well, the thing that there is too.
I will scan, you must scan these. and send them to the-
Actually, I prefer to finish our conversation with if that's all right with the representatives.
Monday night,
Yeah,
no, Tuesday
Tuesday
night.
night.
Next Tuesday.
Sorry, I can't be here.
I'll be here for that.
You got the invitation. I forwarded it to you.
I'll
I
check, I'll be here.
I wrote it down, but I just wrote it down. but
So
I got it.
the thing that I look at too is, and then I'm not trying to put a burden on the residents to look at it. But I'm just looking at what's gonna happen the year after and the year after that too. That do you do a stepping stone approach or do you do a big jump? Okay, and looking at, we wanna kind of step, or you wanna do a big jump?
No, I would not recommend.
So that's why I think looking at this, especially with equipment that's getting older, we talked about ambulance and all the other stuff, so there's things that are gonna be coming that I think we have to address, just looking at that.
And that is really more your CIP budget, and actually, that's a separate fund kind of thing,
Yeah.
much the same as we do need to develop budgets for water and sewage. So that we can eventually better monitor that as well.
Okay. Motion to adjourn.
Loans have
No, is this
consequences.
really, do I have to say motion to adjourn?
What?
Loans have consequences.
I mean, you have to pay it back.
You gotta pay them back.
Oh, I.
Motion to adjourn.
Oh, second, I second it.
Okay.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Sonny. Well, so what's it?
Thank you.
The next meeting is the
No.
Yeah.